Hi everyone, welcome back to 33 Founders. I'm really excited that you're with us today because I'm here with Adam Draper, the co-founder and CEO of Boost. Thanks so much for being with me, Adam.
I'm really excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
So I want to dive right in because I came across some really interesting information when I was doing my research. I found out that you love Super Mario. I also love Super Mario.
I love video games in general. Yes, I love Super Mario. I also Super Smash Brothers is like sort of my jam, but yes.
So if we're going to go into that world quickly before we get started, who is your favorite character?
Oh, and so in this Super Mario world, so if we're doing Super Smash Brothers, which does have all the Mario characters, it would probably be I don't know, Yoshi or well, technically Ness in Super Smash Brothers, but in the Super Mario world, I would say Yoshi still. So Yoshi in both of them, and in Mario Kart, it would be Yoshi also. He's actually faster than all the other ones, so Yoshi.
Perfect. Had to start out because they're bringing all that stuff to smartphones now, and I'm afraid that my productivity is just going to completely diminish.
Oh yeah, well that's what all iPhones are used for is productivity diminishedness.
All right, so I do want to really dive in now to Boost because I'm really interested in what you guys are doing. Can you introduce us to what you guys are doing on the Accelerator side of things first?
Yeah, sure. So for the last 2.5 years, we've been running a accelerator. Now we are 100% focused on Bitcoin companies. So we have done 5, we call them tribes, over the last 2.5 years. So we have done 97 companies, 50 of which are Bitcoin related. And what we do is we provide housing, office space, and we invest about $10,000 to $20,000 for about 6% of a company. And we provide the housing in downtown San Mateo, and right across the street is the office space. So what you really get out of any accelerator really is a network and startup knowledge. And what we realized, which we can get into sort of the Bitcoin element a little more later, but what we realize is that we're very good at facilitating a community of really, really intelligent people around their products. And they learn so much from each other. And so you get 2 things out of an accelerator. One is the network, and we provide that by providing mentorship. I've started a company previously. Brayton, my partner, came from that company as well. And then also we surround ourselves with really, really great mentors. We have they're all listed on our website, boost.vc. You can go check it out. And then we also bring in speakers. We've had speakers from Brian Armstrong from Coinbase to Mark Andreessen to just fantastic speakers who you really want to hear from. And those you hear from weekly. And so that's people come to be able to sort of be immersed in this ecosystem. And we felt that we were able to sort of like accelerate these companies, like their growth. Everything moves much faster when they're here because they're surrounded by so many smart people. And it's really, really fun, but also it's very productive. It's they get going so much faster. We help them focus. We help them sort of see where they fit in the ecosystem. And now that we're focused on Bitcoin, we definitely have the most data points on where Bitcoin is going, what types of companies are in the Bitcoin ecosystem. And it's just really great to be sort of a thought leader in that space because it's going to become a huge space over the next couple of years.
How are things going for Tribe 5 right now?
It's great. We have 25 Bitcoin companies, which is more than we broke our own record for how many Bitcoin companies can be accelerated in one session. And my goal for this session, it was like to make a statement because we hadn't gone all Bitcoin. It sort of chose us over the course of the last 2.5 years. We were really just trying to support the community. And then we were like, you know what? People know us as the Bitcoin Accelerator anyway. Let's go all in. And the response has been fantastic. My goal is to make the statement that like there are 25 really great companies out there who are starting businesses right now, and to show them, and because a lot of people didn't think there were that many different businesses that you could start in the Bitcoin ecosystem. So they're doing fantastic. We're about a half to 2/3 of the way through the program. Demo day is quickly approaching. They're all making crazy progress and doing really great things. So
For someone who can't work with you guys at Boost, but is also looking at an accelerator, so they're not in the Bitcoin space, what advice can you give them on the key components they should look for before applying?
to any accelerator or accelerator, I mean, but I guess it would be similar advice. So the advice I would give someone who's wanting to apply to an accelerator, um, it's the same advice I would give any entrepreneur. One is build the thing, like try it, try the minimum viable thing, and see if there is a need for your product. Focus on one problem rather than solving everyone's problem. Uh, and then be enthusiastic. Like pick something that you're really, really excited about because starting a company is probably the hardest thing that anyone can do. And when the going gets tough, you want to keep going, and you want to be the one who's going to be in it forever and ever. We have this saying that we fund basically we fund cockroaches. That's it sounds negative, but it's a basically the goal of a startup should be it should be to build something incredible, but to not die in that process. And so cockroaches are very good at building teamwork and not dying. And so we believe that we want to find the scrappiest, best entrepreneurs who are super passionate about what they're doing, which we define as cockroaches.
So when it comes to interviewing some cockroaches then, what are you looking for? So let's say we're in an interview and I have a super cool Bitcoin company. Since it's my story, it's going to be the Bitcoin company that like hits everything big. So like you can say, hey, she's onto something.
Okay.
What are some things that you want me to demonstrate to you during that conversation to think, hey, let me give her a spot at Boost?
Okay, so first, we do a lot of the things that like venture capitalists or any angel investor will ask. We'll ask, we want to know that the market size is big enough. Most people in Bitcoin are in the Bitcoin space, so the market size is Bitcoin. We're hoping that the market size grows. That's basically our assumption, but we're putting our money into it, so it's great. The team, we want to make sure that this team why is this team able to do it when no one else is able to do it? Like, is this team capable of building what they're saying that they want to build? And then is the idea feasible, and is this timely? Is this the time for this idea? Is it too early? Is it too late? Like, where does this fall into that spectrum? And then the last one is still, I would say, scrappiness or commitment. If this team was out of money, living in their parents' basement, would they still be building this product? And that's showing real faith in the concept. We like to say that we look for the why they are doing what they're doing, not necessarily the how. It's like why. It needs to be a very strong why as to why they're about to spend the next 7 to 10 years building this product.
I love that because it transitions into something you said in one of your blogs, that entrepreneurs have great days and bad days, often in the same days. So you have to have that faith, or you're not going to keep going. You're not going to be scrappy. How do you personally cope with that when things don't always go right and you obviously have to keep moving forward?
Oh my gosh, it's having a great team around you is probably the best way, and realizing the reasons that you're doing what you're doing is another really great way. Like having a great so solo founders, we have found, have a very difficult time getting through the early days just because they get lonely. And I would have found the same thing. I have a great co-founder named Brayton Williams, who's sort of my counterpart, and we've fallen into these roles where it just sort of worked out the way that he's very good at the things I'm not good at, I'm good at the things he's not good at, and so it ended up working out really well. But like when going gets tough, we talk, we fight, we build, and so we really. There are highs and lows, but generally, as long as you have someone you're in the trenches with, it sort of commits you to the overall vision. And so I would say a good team, and then making sure that you know why you're doing what you're doing. If you lose track of why you're doing what you're doing, that is when it becomes a little shaky. We have I do what I do because I love helping young entrepreneurs. I grew from when I started my first business. I made every mistake known to man, and now I can actually bestow that knowledge upon other entrepreneurs. So I can help them not make the same mistakes I did. And I find that's where I get my fulfillment, and that's why I do what I do. I'd say really for the entrepreneurs who are really trying to change something, build something new, like if they see something that no one else does, like make sure you know why you're doing it.
I think that lends right into Bitcoin specifically because not everyone really understands what's happening in the space and what needs to happen. For those who don't know, Adam, can you give us a glimpse into what Bitcoin is and what progress has been made recently?
Yeah, sure. So I stopped explaining what Bitcoin is, and I just say use cases now because
Perfect.
It's complicated. It's a technology. It'd be like explaining TCP/IP when really all I have to say is the internet. And so what I say is Bitcoin is the Skype of money. So originally, before Skype, the telecom companies had a monopoly on long distance calling. So they were able to charge you whatever they wanted for calling from, let's say, Tanzania to the United States. But then Skype came along, and I actually vividly remember my sister actually called from Tanzania. We were on a family trip, and we did Tanzania to the United States, and it was like 30 minutes long, but it was like an incredibly expensive call. It was like $400 or something like that. And so we learned that, telcos can charge whatever they want, even though it's the same amount of energy for them to send a call from like here to Kentucky versus here to Tanzania. But Skype came along and they said, hey, as long as you're in our network, if you sign up, you have access to Skype, someone else has access to Skype, it'll be a free call. But if you call outside the network, it's going to cost you money because we have to deal with the telco provider. However, suddenly there was a market price for long distance calls. Like it was cents rather than dollars per minute. And that was a very, very exciting thing because suddenly there was a market price. So having a market price is always good. Bitcoin is the same for money. Right now, the banks, MoneyGram, Western Union, they all have a monopoly on long distance payments. But now Bitcoin's coming along, and if you wanted to stay in Bitcoin, it would be a free transaction. Like I could send you dollars to $1 million, and it would be virtually free transaction if you want to stay in Bitcoin. But if you want to cash out of Bitcoin, it's going to cost you money. It's going to cost a certain amount of dollars. It'll cost 1% in, 1% out, which is for small amounts of money cheaper than any other service can do. And so that's one of the best use cases of Bitcoin. There are other smaller ones. Other use cases that we've been thinking a lot about. What does Bitcoin do better than cash? Long distance payments, B2B, cross-border payments, microtransactions, and really a store of value in different nations. But really, I've been focusing on microtransactions and cross-border payments because I think those are the first to immediately add value to the world. But in the United States, we're looking at a lot of people are looking at Bitcoin and they're like, I'm already digital. I trust my bank account. I trust, Wells Fargo, SVB, whatever, wherever you're banking. And the rest of the world doesn't actually have that they don't have that trust for their banking system. There are a lot of countries in Africa where there's 10% bank account adoption, but 90% cell phone adoption. And that's somewhere where Bitcoin can really thrive because no one has really ever had a store of value, a way in which they can hold money other than like in their mattress with cash. And then in Argentina, they have 25% inflation year over year, which means their dollar today is worth less tomorrow. And so they actually are trying to find a place to store their money that doesn't lose value. These are all like, I don't know, it's a global economics problem. That's what Bitcoin has become. And it's a really exciting thing where there are a lot of different opportunities, whether you are sending money cross-border, whether you are building technology to support Bitcoin businesses, whether you are doing microtransaction businesses. And we have really just taken a stance that this is one of the biggest things that anyone could be working on because it influences the whole world if it works. And in my opinion, it is 100% working and going to work. So it's exciting.
That's a pretty good why for why you should push through the tough times.
There it is. That's the why.
So everyone, Adam, feels that you're a big ambassador, you're the CEO or the king of Bitcoin right now. And I'm going to
Thanks.
go with the Yoshi, though, of Bitcoin. So
Uh-huh.
let's say we're in Super Mario,
Uh-huh.
you're driving, I'm going to give you a bullet.
Okay.
What bullet do you want in the Bitcoin space over the next year, over the next 2 years that you feel can make a really big difference?
Honestly, the thing that I really want the most, it's actually, it sounds unsexy, but I want regulatory clarity. Like right now, there's a big problem where all of our companies, it's very difficult to get bank accounts or getting a relationship with a bank. And the reason is that they are uncertain about the regulations that the federal government will be sort of overseeing the banks with. And so banks will just not bank Bitcoin companies because the risk doesn't outweigh the reward. And so because of whether it be like the Fed will think that they're money laundering or the thing facilitating money laundering or whatever the thing is. And so just clarity on those, like a list of rules from the government to banks, to us, to Bitcoin companies would be very, very valuable for the future of Bitcoin. However, on top of that, the rules that people are coming out with right now are not good rules, and so I would want it to be more innovative forward. Like, don't regulate the Bitcoin companies out of business, because right now the innovation's coming from the young entrepreneurs and people who are really trying to change the world, but they are the ones who don't have as much money to be regulated. And so they're trying to do what's best. They do AML, KYC, which are the regulatory procedures that like banks do. But they don't necessarily have the fundamental like dollars that they would need in order to be regulated at this point. And so what I'm looking for is sort of something that's flexible, something where I understand the regulators are there to make sure that the consumer is protected. It's just Bitcoin is one of these things that's it is world changing, it's world developing, it's pushing the limits of how financial technology can work, and they are right now making it compliant to the point where it just breaks it. So regulation lightness. Like I do want regulation, but I also want it to be fair and helpful, not just like don't kill it just to kill it. Is basically that's sort of what it feels like right now.
How can the wider community who isn't directly involved in the Bitcoin space support that type of regulation? So someone like me, for example, what can I do to help move that goal forward?
I'd say really it's about awareness, education, Bitcoin, positive things that are happening in the Bitcoin. Most people always hear about the negative things that are happening in Bitcoin, but like the positive things that happen in Bitcoin are always good to spread around. I'd say the biggest problem is education, though. It's not, banks, regulators, they're all fearful of change, I guess. And this is one of those things that would be a drastic change to their business long term. And so they might not, their incentive is not necessarily to help support it. But I believe technology wins in the end, and it is a better infrastructure for fintech. So how you can help is really just finding the positive stories that we can be pushing, and not, and just sort of like the characters who are in the ecosystem that are really pushing the limits of Bitcoin and helping out. There's so many great. I say this a lot, but like one of the reasons that we're focused on Bitcoin is like some of the smartest people I've ever met are working on Bitcoin companies. Like the value of these brains working on Bitcoin products is going somewhere, even if no people aren't seeing the progress yet. And it's going into like the infrastructure of Bitcoin. It's going into the yeah, I came up with a phrase I'm calling the Bitcoin tsunami. So like with a tsunami wave, like 90% of the work happens underneath the water until it hits land. And so right now what's happening is like the Bitcoin wave is like 90% underneath the water, and there are tons of really smart people who are underneath the water, like working on crazy awesome products. And we're going to hit land sometime in the next year. And I think there's going to be like a crazy wave that happens for all fintech, where all of a sudden people just understand that Bitcoin will be important to their business.
Very cool. So I want to transition now for a couple of minutes and chat about investing. And I
Yeah.
want to.
Oh, one more thing. Sorry.
No, go for it.
And media in general, what you can start to do is, I mean, adopt microtransactions. If you can get tipped, it's going to be the way that media works in the future, because you don't need to. The best content will rise to the top by being paid the most. It's basically how it's going to work, I think. So I think this is one of those. It's one of the things that media could change because of Bitcoin. Okay, continue investing. You were about to say.
Okay, so we'll get into investing, and I actually want to start out with a quote from one of your blogs. This is the best blog quote I have read in months. You said, as the great philosopher Pitbull once said, ask for advice, get money twice. This killed me because it's so true, and you'd never expect to hear it from Mr. Worldwide.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
going
Yeah, it's it's funny when you said funny quote. I immediately knew you were going to say that. So continue, but yes.
going into that, you got rejected, you said in that same post, by over 150 VCs when you were raising money. And you emphasize that headlines only say how much a startup has raised, and it doesn't demonstrate how difficult it is. Can you elaborate on that more? Because I feel like if you just go on Twitter, it's X company got 50 million, X company got 100 million. No one's saying the effort that's going into this.
Yeah, well, I've learned that the some of the best companies don't announce their fundraise immediately because they want to use the fundraise when they need awareness for a product or for some of the best companies just wait to really release that information, even if they do it 6 months prior. I would say let's hear a better way to like phrase the question, I think, would be more about what's the best way to phrase this? Okay, I'll talk about fundraising as a whole. I think that's the best way for me to answer this question. One, fundraising is extremely difficult. So I emailed probably 3,000 people when I was fundraising. I met with about 300, and I ended up with about 40 people who said yes. I mean, if you look at me on paper, technically, I grew up in Silicon Valley. I know a lot of random people around here, and it still took 12 months from opening to closing of my fund. And so I think a lot of people don't understand how much work goes into fundraising or what people are looking for when fundraising. And I think from an entrepreneur's perspective, right now it's really popular to be a startup. And it's even more important to stand out as a startup now. And so you really need to create great progress. You have to get great metrics. You have to show your passion and energy and enthusiasm. And I'd say when you're fundraising, the best advice I can give is know why you're doing it. Obviously, try to get a product out as soon as possible, and make sure you get sort of early indicators that the product is needed in the market. And then the last thing is just it's very difficult from an investor's standpoint to say no to someone who is very enthusiastic about what they're doing. And you can't artificially create enthusiasm. You can't be artificial about enthusiasm. As an investor, when someone's enthusiastic and excited about their product and excited to be a part of Boost or excited to be a part of get invested in by a company, you can't artificially create that. Yeah, you can't fake it. And it's also very exciting. The excitement rubs off on you and you get very excited about the concept or the product. And so the best advice I can be is be enthusiastic about what you do, and be excited that you're solving a problem in the market that's really needed, and feel very passionate about that idea. Yeah.
So one of the things, of course, is that you're going to take a ton of meetings and not everyone's going to say yes.
Yeah, 90% of people will say no. That's basically.
It's not always for you to take personally, and a lot of them want you to stay in touch. What's the best way to stay in touch? In your post, you share that getting in touch every month to just kind of give them an update is helpful.
Yeah, so what I encourage our startups to do is actually send a monthly update to all investors they've ever met. Because keeping them updated, it shows it. Basically, investors invest based off of there's this guy who came in. His name was Jeff Siebert. He started a company called Crashlytics, which was acquired by Twitter. And he came in and spoke, and he said investors invest in lines, not dots. And so what that means is you need to have multiple data points on a line in order for an investor to feel that there's enough momentum to invest. And so it's really important. So what accelerators really do is we help you build a track record for investors to potentially look at you. And so we help you build a track record over 3 months where we will also stake our name on your company. And that's why accelerators are really good. We're a good curator for angel investors and venture capitalists. And so in that sort of line dot scenario, yeah, that I mean that's what you need to do. Sorry, that's basically all it is. Is you want a monthly update. You just want to keep in touch with the companies multiple times throughout ever. And it's a way in which you get to talk to a lot of really, really great people. Like you just get to keep in touch and talk to, my investors are really great, smart, awesome people, and I get to tell them what I'm doing once a month, and it's not too onerous on my side, but it also makes me review what I did last month.
No, it's a good way to stay on track, and I know part of that initial meeting is the pitch, and you made a great point in your post about having the ability to be memorable but not overdo it. And I always want to know what the line is between that, because I have a really quirky personality, and sometimes, maybe I want to start with a joke or something that someone isn't. So maybe I would have started with someone else, Adam, with the Mario thing, and they would have just been like, oh my God, what are you doing? What's the line between being memorable and then going a little overboard?
Yeah, I mean, hey, Mario joke, people will remember you probably. I'll remember that.
Mario's important, so.
Yeah, but everyone's has a Mario joke somewhere. I don't know. It's a part of knowing your audience and like knowing what the person on the other side of the table is wanting of you. Some people are more serious. Some people are more relaxed. It really is about knowing your audience at some level. Where some people just want the numbers. Some people want like the story. And I'd say at most of a lot of really great investors, we're at a stage where it's like normally they don't have too many data points yet, and you have to be able to tell a great story. And so a lot of great investors have to be able to receive stories and understand where they can where the product is. That's essentially what their job is. And from their perspective, they're seeing, in the blog post I cite it, but they're seeing 10 companies a day, and you have to somehow stand out amongst all those 10 companies. And so a piece of that is sort of like at the beginning a joke, a palate cleanser, something that makes them like they will be thinking about the last 5 meetings they have before they're talking to you. And so you want them present, and so you should ask them about their day, their daughter, their whatever you can to sort of get them in the now, and then you can sort of pitch them the business. It's just sometimes investors, included myself in this, is like I'm stuck in my last meeting, whether I'm in a new meeting, and I'm still thinking about the problems from the last meeting. So I would it's a hard thing, and I would say one of the best ways to stand out is really being enthusiastic about what you're doing. And also just building an awesome product and an awesome company. But another quick side note is like different investors are looking for different things. Not all investors are the same. It's not like every investor is
a carbon copy. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone's looking for something else, and so them saying no doesn't mean that. It might just mean that they don't feel they can add enough value to your company, and so they're just like, well, I'm not in the VR drone space, so I don't know anything about this. I don't think I'd add enough value to really warrant me giving you any money. But they might know someone, and so you really want to. It's a relationship. This entire industry is built on great relationships, and so you really just want to keep in touch and build great relationships. That someone broke down like what the best traits of the best startup CEOs were. And it turned out like the number one quality every startup CEO that really succeeded from starting a company was likability. Like they were just nice people. You can't go into an industry and sort of be a massive, not nice person and expect people to do deals with you. And so likability was like the number one trait that everyone focused on. Not intelligence, not it's just people like working with you, so they'll do deals.
Can you give us an example of a great pitch that you've heard, maybe from the last tribe, that just got you excited and kind of encapsulated all of those different components?
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to tell it about a booze company because that would be picking favorites, and I don't like picking favorites in booze. But I will tell the story about a quick anecdote about one of the best pitches I was given was probably Brian Armstrong from Coinbase.
It was the best pitch. It changed your life.
Yeah. Well, it was definitely the most like career changing pitch, I guess. Because I went down this rabbit hole that ended up changing my business, changing everything. And Brian's just a really, really great guy. But he pitched me, and the hardest part of his pitch was no one was getting. So he had to explain what Bitcoin was on top of his business. And that was the hardest part. The fact that I walked away from there understanding both was very crazy. So one after that, that's crazy. But the thing I looked at most was, okay, so Brian Armstrong was leaving Airbnb, which 2.5 years ago was known to be, it was going rock, like it was huge. It was going to be $1 billion company. And it is. Now it's raising at a $20 billion valuation or something. And he was leaving that to start a company in a market whose market size was $200 million total, which means that even if they own the entire market, they would not be as big as Airbnb.
Yeah, not even close.
And Airbnb doesn't even own the entire market, and still, could be $20 billion company. And so I was thinking, okay, and he seemed very smart. He had started a couple companies before with varying success. He had done he had a lot of experience, but still, he was leaving this great company to start this like either he was absolutely insane or he knew something I didn't. And that was sort of like, that little edge to it was like what really, point, it was what grabbed me. And I would say that craziness is sort of what people should look for in entrepreneurs. People who are like like they believe it so wholeheartedly that they're betting their career on it essentially, and they know that it's a 5 to 10 year bet. Like they have to be working on this for 5 to 10 years in order to create any value. And so Brian was this unique circumstance where I didn't know anything about Bitcoin, and at the end of it, I knew everything about Bitcoin. Not everything, but I knew a fair amount about Bitcoin, and I was really excited about the idea. He got me excited. That was what it really was. We met at a coffee shop. He was a solo founder at that point. Now he has Fred Ersham, who's fantastic. Highly recommend solo founders get co-founders. That's another thing. And yeah, it's more of I don't know, like pitches. It's sort of like you really, the intensity of how much people love it is a really important part of it. So I don't know how to best explain that right now.
No, I think that's perfect, and it goes directly into the question that I end all the 33 Founders episodes with on uncertainty. You mentioned the risk that he was taking, leaving Airbnb to embrace Bitcoin when it's $200 million versus $20 billion. So that's huge. You're also taking that risk, and you're going to have to wait a little, whether it's a year, whether it's 10 years, for this all to really come into fruition for you. How do you have and embrace that it's us against the world mentality that you've spoken about before? Because I'm sure it's not easy every day.
So you're talking about the uncertainty of our job, which is so at the end of the day, well, my job is really cool. We get to decide essentially what we think the future will look like, and we get to and we get to back great people who are leaning in that direction, and that our job is uncertainty. Like, essentially, like we're saying that we're going to protect the future, and we're saying that this company is going to be a big deal in 10 years or whatever. And that's a very difficult thing. So if I was like worrying about risk every day, people always ask me about like the risk of it all, and it's like, well, it's all risk. Like I wouldn't do anything if all I did was stare at the risks of my job. True. Because they're like, if all I did was think about the regulatory environment of Bitcoin, or the like fact that the market size of something is not big enough, or there's so many risks involved in like starting a business and then we take upon those risks when we're investing in those companies. It's really about the people at the end of the day. Like, who do you want to be working with? And so we try to back the people we would like to hang out with. We have to hang out with them for 3 months, so we want to and then we're invested for an infinite amount of time. So like we want to put as much we want to like the founders. We want that likability factor, and that's something that we really do look strongly for. We just live in uncertainty. Like, starting a company is like being thrown into the middle of the ocean and trying to build a boat, and like figuring out which direction is the land. Like, you have to do all of those things at the same time. And it's really, really difficult. And we at all accelerators, are just trying to like point them in some direction to help them find the land.
You're like the semi-lighthouse.
Yeah, the semi-light. We're like sort of a lighthouse. It's sort of like an constantly moving lighthouse. Yeah, but yes, we're that's sort of where we try to help. And and so that I keep using ocean metaphors. I don't know why, but they're good.
Awesome. Well, I think that's a perfect way to end it, because the lighthouse thing is going to stay in my head now. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with me today, Adam.
Yeah, this was fun. Thank you very much.
How can our viewers stay up to date with what you guys are working on at Boost?
So, I mean, probably we release stuff on press. We write blog posts. My blog is, I'm on Medium now, so I do medium.com/@AdamDraper is my Medium handle. You can also go to adamdraper.com to see my old blog post, and it has a link to my Medium. But then my co-founder Brayton has a blog also. Those are probably the best ways right now. Social, Facebook page, at Boost VC for Twitter, and then also Instagram, but it has at Boost_VC. And the Instagram's pretty fun because you get to see like who's speaking, the day-to-day stuff, which is really great. So yeah, that's probably the best way to stay up to date on all of that stuff.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This was really fun.